to the field. From the ice to the turf, we'll break it down. Discussing every win and every loss in town. We'll talk about the Canucks and the Lions. We are your irrational fans. We are your irrational fans.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 89 of the Hughes Sports Podcast. I am your host, of course, Jake Hughes, normally alongside the old man. And I'd ask him how the hell was he doing today. However, the old man is under the weather. Hopefully he'll be in chatting along if he's not taking one of his naps. Well wishes to the old man. Hopefully you're feeling better. We'll see you here next week. However, this week we have a huge show for you guys today. Not only is it opening day, it is season opener for the Canucks. It's also the home opener for the Canucks as they host the Calgary Flames in 58 minutes at the top of the hour at 7 o'clock Pacific time. The game will start, and we will be leading you into that game. You may have noticed Matt Sekeres will be joining the show, but he will not be joining the show until halfway through, as that's where we're going to make our swap. Normally we talk Canucks and hockey news first and then touch on the CFL the week that was. We're going to flip it this week because we want to lead you right into the Canucks home opener with as many eyes and excitement and as much energy as possible, and I have that energy and excitement today, so I look forward to chatting with you all. I am going to be leaning on you. If you're watching, please do leave a comment, ask me a question as I'm going through things, because I don't have the opportunity to throw it to the old man and get some of his wild, outlandish, ridiculous takes. So yeah, let's just start with it. If you're watching this live right now, hit the like button, comment, share it with a friend. If you're watching on X, hit that little retweet button. Share it out to all your friends. But let's jump into it. The first game of the week, there was only 3 CFL games this week. And it was the Bombers taking on the Ticats. And the Bombers winning by a score of 31-10. A lot of interesting things happened in this game, and I think the biggest one was in the first half, the Ticats really kept up with the Bombers until they didn't throughout the whole game. Like it felt like the Ticats were right there with them, and then the Bombers just proved that they are that much better, that they are a team that rightfully so has the Grey Cup in their sights, right? Like they are clearly the best team in the West right now. But a lot of things that I noticed from this game, Ticats, honestly, really great coverage in the secondary, and there probably should have been 2 or 3 coverage sacks. However, Claros is so shifty and not a great runner, but can scramble like none other. He's able to get out of the way and find space. And when you're bringing 4 guys against the Bombers, their O-line is strong enough to not need their O-line is strong enough to need more than 4 people coming through. Yes, old man. A few people have told me I look like you, but a younger, better looking version of you, of course. Basically with not enough pressure, Claros was able to find space, whether that's running, and he took off a handful of times in the game and was able to just play a complete game. From the looks of things, the interceptions really is what cost Hamilton the game, is giving the ball away to the Bombers and giving Bombers field position and stopping themselves on marches down the field that they should have been able to score on. Anyone from the comments, if you're watching, any thoughts on this blowout? What looks like a blowout, but it was much closer on the actual game itself. I'll wait a few seconds. But not a lot coming out of that game. I believe with this loss, it means that the Ticats can no longer cross over into the West. And the West is where we go with our later night game. The Stamps lose by a score of 15-32 against your hometown BC Lions. And let me tell you, this game, it was interesting. It was probably the first half was some of the most boring football I've seen in a long time. Neither offense looked like they really wanted the ball. Neither team really looked like they wanted to do anything with the football. It was wild to watch and see because there was no chemistry from Jake Meyer and his receivers, no chemistry from Nathan Rourke and his receivers. It looked like two offenses playing in the preseason. It just looked awkward and not like a good game. Like if the entire game was played just on offense, like offense versus offense, that game would have been a 3-point game. They're both terrible. No one was moving the ball. It wasn't until the BC Lions defense stepped up and scored 2 huge touchdowns to put the game out of reach. And I wrote a bunch of notes and questions I wanted to ask the old man, but, and I talked about it before, is having 2 number 1 quarterbacks too confusing for this team? Is there a lack of chemistry with this team? And it's something that I think that's really should be talked about more when it comes to the BC Lions. The BC Lions themselves have a great team. If you look at their team on paper, on the offense, they have a fantastic team. You've got 2 legitimate all-star starters. 2 legitimate all-star starters. And one of them is starting and one of them is backup. It almost feels like there's and we talked about it last week. Maybe it's the coaching, maybe it's a play calling, but it feels like there's no chemistry because both the receivers and the quarterbacks are fighting for their quarterback or their guy rather than being, this is my number 1. And I know they're never going to come out and say that right up front, but it just feels awkward. It just felt awkward. Like there was no push. And maybe that's what it is. I'm working through a thought process here. There is 2 starters, 2 all-stars, and in my opinion, 2, like VA Jr. was having, Vernon Adams Jr. was having a all-star level season, all-star type season, MOP winning, most outstanding, like, and then he got injured. And then right when he was getting ready to come back, Rourke came back, and that's where this team started to fall apart. Don't get me wrong, we lost a couple games. I don't think that was the team falling apart. I think that was VA trying to play through more than he could handle, or not being fully honest with the organization on how big his injury was. And it's there's something missing from this team, and I don't know what it is. And the old man here chatting in, if you are in the chat, say hi to the old man. Wish him well. He's not feeling well. He says, honestly, think there's a burning controversy with the Lions. I checked Holland's eyes. Not interested in being there. Not clued in. And I don't want to ever say that about a professional athlete not wanting to be there and not giving their best. But it feels that way, doesn't it? It feels like they thought that they would be able just to walk into the playoffs and be handed a trophy. And they're not having to fight for a home playoff. Like, this is why I love the CFL. You had a team start 0-5, I believe. And they now have all but guaranteed, I think they fully guaranteed, I'm going to look this up, while I'm ragging the puck here. We had a team start 0-5, and if they haven't already locked up, they haven't locked up the division, but they're 1 win away from locking up the division. I mean, they are playing Toronto this week. And who do they finish and Montreal the week after in week 21. So it's there's no guarantees. There's a lot of moving pieces, right? As a standing stand right now, you've got Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, BC, all locked into the playoffs, but Saskatchewan's 8-7-1, BC's 8-8, Winnipeg's 10-6. If Winnipeg loses those two games, and BC, who plays Montreal, and who do they play this week? They play Saskatchewan this week, and Montreal at the end in week 20. That could be huge, right? So you beat, if you're BC, you have to beat Saskatchewan. You beat Saskatchewan, and you need Saskatchewan to be beat by Calgary or win against Montreal, and you've guaranteed a home playoff spot. But then it goes, how does tiebreaker work in the CFL? I don't even know how the tiebreaker works. Because if that scenario plays out where you have if you have Winnipeg lose out, BC win out, and Saskatchewan lose 2. So Saskatchewan and Winnipeg both have to lose out. BC wins out. Has the highest winning rate in all games played against all the other tied clubs. Okay, so it would go to win percent. And I don't know who has that. I think Winnipeg has that. Yeah, Bombers have that. So they would finish first, but we would still get home ice. There's so many moving pieces, and there's only 3 weeks left. And in the East, I mean, technically Toronto hasn't locked up a playoff position yet. There's so many moving pieces, and it makes the schedule so much more exciting, and every game so much more exciting. Being having so many questions unanswered. And I wish the old man was here, but next week we'll dive into it, because that's just through 2 games. The third game this week, we had the Riders beat the Elks in a fun and entertaining game, probably one of the most entertaining games of the week, by a score of 28-24. I watched the entirety of this game, and it was one of those games that I was entertained from the kickoff until the very end, which is very... I mean, I watch as many games as I can for the podcast, but there were years where if I saw Riders and Elks playing, I would have just found something else to do. This was a super fun and entertaining game. I don't think the Elks look bad in this game. I think the Riders are just a little bit better and a little bit like... Again, there's a reason the Elks aren't in the playoffs and the Riders are. And I think that game really just proved what that was all about. Yeah, it was a fun game, entertaining game. I think the right team, like the better team, won. Some controversial calls. Probably another fine from the CFL going towards McLeod Bethel Thompson after he questioned in the media about the use of instant replay on a play. that wasn't called a touchdown on the field initially, but then was called a touchdown so they could review it. It was a kind of a cluster of a play, and I wish they didn't do that and put question marks and asterisks on games like this, because it was a lot of fun and it was super close. And I mean, if the Elks scored that, I think they have been able to pull out and get that win. But you can't question the CFL Officials Association. And we are joined sporadically by the old man, clearly feeling a slightly bit better.
No, really, I just felt bad for you because I'm not there to help to be the co-host. So you're gonna have to excuse my cough.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I appreciate you jumping in, because I was looking at the time, and I've been talking for 15 minutes straight, and people are probably sick of hearing my voice, and I need a sip of juice. So, what was your take on the entire week that was in the CFL?
Well, let's go back. You were talking about who finishes where in the West or the East. I'm going to turn my camera, see if that's better. Sorry, I'm just down on the couch. So, does it not go head to head?
Yes, it goes head to head win loss. So it would be the Bombers have won 2, Lions won 1. So the Bombers would take first overall, even in a tie.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yes.
So as far as the other games go, probably the most entertaining that I saw so far was for that last week was the Rider game for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of those games where both teams were fighting, like the Riders were fighting to clinch a playoff spot, and the Elks were fighting to keep a playoff spot. Two teams that were playing for something big. Right?
Yes.
Like it showed in their play and the entertainment factor.
For sure. For sure.
While you're here, is your voice going to be able to withstand everyone's favorite segment?
Seriously? Yeah.
It's time for the old man predictions. How well did he do? Do-do-da. Do-dee-do.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I was going to have to do this segment all on my own.
I couldn't let you do that. Honestly, you'd probably screw it up. So,
well, you made your decisions. You sent them to me. So,
yeah, but you'd have to read them, and you'd probably screw that up.
Last week, old man, you went 2-1. Your only loss was you picked. Who did you pick last week? You picked the Elks.
I picked the Elks. I thought the Elks would upset them, but that didn't happen.
That did not happen. This week, we have the Argos taking on the Bombers. Who is your pick?
Crap. I'm not looking at... I'm on my phone, so I can't. Who did I take? The Argos taking on the Bombers. I took the Bombers.
You picked the Bombers, correct? Yes.
Bombers.
Then we have the Saturday game at 2 p.m. No, 1 p.m. Pacific time on CTV. We have the Elks taking on the Stampeders in a game where, God, this must be a hard game to get excited for as a player, as a coach, as a fan.
Yeah, what do you do in a game like this?
If it's me, like Calgary just signed to their practice roster a former NFL, like a NFL reject quarterback who's supposed to have some promise.
Yeah.
To me, it's the type of game where you throw all of your backups in and see what you got.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, basically, you gotta try everything, right? Yeah, you just give it a shot, and are you playing for your jobs at this point? I don't even know if you're playing for your jobs at this point.
I mean, Jerry Jackson could be. Like he might want to go up there and be like, no, I'm like, this is what we can do under my team, and make a big hubbubaloo about it. But I think for Dickinson, I think if they're going to be making a decision, that decision's already made.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And on that game, do you remember who you picked?
I took the Elks, didn't I?
You did take the Elks, yes.
I took the Elks.
And then the Saturday night game, we have the BC Lions taking on the Saskatchewan Rough Riders.
It's the Saskatoon Rough Riders. I thought they played in Regina, but what do I know? I'm sick.
Saskatchewan, Regina, Moose Jaw.
I didn't even give you a hard time for saying that Winnipeg would get home, Winnipeg would get home ice. I didn't give you a hard time about that.
Hockey's on the brain, all right? It's not my fault. Hockey is on the brain.
What was the question again?
Lions or Riders?
Well, of course, Lions.
Yes. The underdogs, as per pick 'em when you made your picks.
Yeah.
Which is shocking to me.
Well, I mean, you have to understand when you're looking at those picks, those are just the fans' picks, right?
That is true. Yeah, that's right. That's not actually based on any real odds. Then the other game that we didn't get to was the Red Blacks and Alouettes playing on Thanksgiving, on Monday, Canadian Thanksgiving. The Red Blacks taking on the Alouettes.
Yeah, Alouettes walk all over them.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I picked them by 10.
You didn't put that in your screenshot to me. You just wrote that one in. So
yeah, didn't fit in the screenshot, but on the last one, you always have to pick point differential, and I think I picked them to beat them by 10 points.
That's fair. I was very confused looking at everything. I was like, why is there a game on Monday? Until I realized that it's Thanksgiving, so it's a stat holiday.
It is.
Well, man, we appreciate you coming in and using what little voice you have and what little energy you have to come say hello.
To save your ass.
I mean, I definitely could have vamped for longer, and I would have done a whole thing about how your record is worse than it actually is.
You would say what?
That your 34, 26, and 2 record should actually be 34 and 28, but we're giving you the ties.
What the? You know for a fact it should be 39.
I have no way of knowing which game and which picks you made that I forgot to add up.
This is just bullshit. I'm going to go to the league. I'm going to complain. I'm going to ask for an intervention.
Are you going to go to the Old Man Predicts Commission Board?
Yes, I am. You can
send that email to hughesportspod@gmail.com and it will be replied to within 30 to 50 business days. For those who don't know, I am the one who has those emails.
The fans want the truth. The fans deserve the truth.
I think the biggest question here is that on one of the most exciting days in hockey, opening day, your Vancouver Canucks are taking on the Calgary Flames. And look, I know you weren't ready for the show, but all I see is it looks like you're wearing a Flames shirt.
It's not. We
don't know that.
I will go put my jersey on before the game, though.
Well, we've only got 36 minutes until game time.
There you go.
And if you're looking to go to the game, you might still be able to grab some seats. Doesn't matter which game you're going to. Whether it's a hockey game, a basketball game, a football game, the play, anything. You can get a discount at SeatGeek.com. If you use code HSPPOD, you'd get $20 off your first ticket purchase. Again, that's code HSPPOD.
What are the cheapest tickets that the
we cannot associate with which games that they have on their website.
Oh.
But if you were looking for a game, the last I saw for a pretty good deal was about $40. So you'd be saving 50% off of that ticket.
Very cool.
All you have to do is use HSP Pod. That's HSP POD on checkout on your first purchase. You'll receive that $20 off. SeatGeek has a really cool feature as well when you're scrolling through the seats in the arena or theater that you're in, and it'll show either a red seat or a green seat icon, meaning good deal or bad deal. Green means good, red means bad. You'll be able to you'll be able to know if you're getting a good deal or a bad deal right away before you even look at the seats and how much the seats cost. You can go to SeatGeek.com and use code HSPPod to get $20 off your first ticket purchase.
Great deal.
Thank you so much just for SeatGeek for sponsoring the show. While we are kind of ragging the puck and delaying here before Mr. Sekeres joins the show, I just wanted to see, old man, what are your predictions for this season? We never really did our own predictions, and I was saving them for this show. And then you ended up getting sick and being put on what I would call day-to-day watch. What are your expectations or predictions for the entire season for the Canucks?
Well, that's funny because I was thinking about that as we were getting ready to watch this game tonight. We play 82 games, is that right?
82 games, correct.
So if I said we needed to win 55 of those games,
that would be well overboard of what you need to win the President's Trophy.
I think we're going to go somewhere between 52 and 55, somewhere in that area. So I'm going to say between 104 and 110 points.
I think if we, because last year, I'm just looking it up. Last year, the Canucks got to 109 points with 50 wins and 9 overtime losses.
Right.
I think if we hit 50 wins again this year, that's a huge success and a huge bonus. I think we're going to be in that 48 to, I say 49 to 45 win range. I wouldn't be surprised if the Oilers do beat us in the regular season, if we're second place in the Pacific. But I also think that would put us second place in the West and still one of the top 5 teams in the NHL.
It's okay to be wrong.
Hey, I'm just being realistic. You've got your crazy irrational sunglasses on. I think that there's a lot of spots when you're looking at this team when it comes to shooting percentage, when it comes to just luck, just puck luck around the net, that some of these players are probably going to take a step back in how many goals they score. And for the first potentially month or more without Thatcher Demko, are we going to be able to win those games where we're not getting the puck luck?
Yeah, I think we made enough moves. You're going to have to excuse my voice. We made enough moves in the offseason that preparing for Demko not coming back till probably January, that I think the 2 goalies we have with, I'm blank on their names, sorry.
Shelovs and Lankinen.
That was on with bringing in Lankinen, can't even say it. I think it's really going to kind of shore up that fear that we had. Watching them both in preseason, it was thought it was pretty obvious that either of them can be starters.
Yeah.
Matt just messaged me. He's having trouble logging in.
Okay, well, why don't I let you go?
Yeah, let me go and see if I can help him out.
That's what I was going to say. See if you can help him out. We appreciate you jumping on, old man.
No problem.
You next week. Make sure you actually close because right now we're just staring at your forehead. Again, the old man not feeling super well, feeling under the weather. So he is going to jump off and see if we can help Matt out with some technical support. While we have a bit of a pause here, just want to let you guys know, if you are watching and you are a fan of the show and have a small business, have something that you want to promote, whether that's an event or anything, hit us up at hughesportspod@gmail.com for sponsorship opportunities. We have a loyal and dedicated fan base that tune in week after week, and we want to help promote whatever it is that you guys want to promote, whether that's, like I said, a business, a cause, donations, anything. Let us know. hughesportspod@gmail.com. As mentioned, Matt Sekeres will be joining us shortly. He's having some technical difficulties, and we are heading 29 minutes before we get into our first game of the regular season, game 1 of 82. And if you do not get enough of me today, if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, I need some more insights from Jake, some more irrational fan insights. Well, I've got good news, because tomorrow morning, early tomorrow morning, there will be the Irrational Fan post-game show hosted by me that will be posted up on YouTube if everything works. Last time, not everything worked properly, but crossing my fingers, everything works properly. And we'll be reviewing the game. Basically, right after the game, I will be doing a quick review, breakdown of everything I thought as an irrational fan, taking off my break things down and analyze it brain, and just talk about how it feels from a true fan perspective. Now, while we are waiting for Mr. Sekeres to jump on and join us, it does look like Pia Suter is questionable for tonight's game, as reported earlier today by Rick Tocchet, which means Atu Ratu, who ended up staying up with the team, might make his start with the Vancouver Canucks on this opening game day lineup, which is a super, super great thing for the Canucks and for Archdeep Bains. I think it's a fantastic, or not Archdeep Bains, sorry, Atu Ratu. Fortunately, what that means, though, is that Archdeep Bains was sent down to the AHL, which, again, I think is a fantastic thing. And I believe that Archdeep definitely should get a call up one of these days to the big league. But for now, it is Atu Ratu up on the roster, and I'm just checking in on the Twitter machine to see if there's any updates regarding Pia Suter's status. And I have noticed that our very special guest, the one, the only, Matt Sekeres, has joined us. Welcome, Matt. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm very well, fellas. Thanks for having me back on the show. Happy hockey season to you.
It's this 27 minutes away from puck drop. Not that we're counting down.
You're right.
Don't know if the old man told you, but he's under the weather today, so he will not be joining us.
I didn't hear. Well, I hope he's okay.
He jumped on for about 10 minutes and his voice started to go, so he's called it and gonna go sit at home with some tea and on a couch and cozy up while watching the game. So it'll just be us two for the next 15 or 20 minutes.
Well, it's a tea and cozy kind of evening here in Vancouver. We just had a downpour, expecting another one. There's going to be a lot of wet people walking into Rogers Arena if they're not already in the building. But yeah, very much looking forward to tonight's game and to the season at large.
I haven't been this excited for a season in a long time as a Canucks fan, and not because, as you're aware, as a hockey nerd, being like, ooh, who's going to make the team? What sort of rookies do we have? But this is a team that has top 5 potential in the NHL.
Oh, I think that's entirely fair. I mean, I was looking at the different predictions from different outlets prior to the season, not to mention the betting odds, and it seems like the Canucks are anywhere between 3rd and 9th in the league, depending on who you want to trust. Looks like it's going to be a heck of a division at the top, because needless to say, Edmonton is the Stanley Cup favorite. Vegas won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago, and if they don't pull shenanigans in the regular season with LTIR and get themselves locked into that 8th playoff spot in a tough matchup with Dallas in the first round, I think Vegas might have made more noise last year and anticipating a big bounce back season from the Golden Knights. So, yeah, I think the top of the Pacific is going to be very competitive, much like the top of the Central, because I think Dallas and Colorado are still excellent hockey clubs. And, of course, Winnipeg had an extraordinary season last year as well. So, yeah, I think, we asked on our show today, do you have Stanley Cup expectations? And at the last check, our poll was running more than 50% yes. So, we've been talking about it on the show all week. I think you've got to go back to 2012, 2013, somewhere in there to find a preseason where Canucks fans are as optimistic. We're as optimistic as they are here. We haven't seen this in a long time. We saw our first playoff game at Rogers Arena in 9 years last year. And now we see a Vancouver Canucks team that comes back this year with a lot of optimistic fans and with the weight of expectations.
Well, and that's a big thing is with the expectations, I'm interested to see how players like JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, the core of the group, Brock Besser, how the core responds, because last year it was very much just get into the playoffs and it's good. They made it look easy, just having that as a goal.
Yeah.
How much is the pressure going to affect the team, do you think, moving forward?
Well, it's a great question, and we're not going to know for some time here. What we do know is that right off the hop, Thatcher Demko is not going to be playing goal for them, and so I think that only enhances the pressure on the great team defense that we saw last year, which was really a staple and underpinned much of their success. We're going to see more pressure on Archer Shelovs. Okay, now he's got to continue doing it for Thatcher Demko, like we saw in the playoffs last year when he had to step in. You have Elias Pettersson, who goes into the first year of $11.6 million contract, which makes him one of the highest paid players in the National Hockey League. And of course, that means that comes with its own pressures and responsibilities. And as you mentioned, Brock Besser, who's playing for a contract for next year, playing to prove that he deserves the long-term deal and the long-term deal in Vancouver. So, yeah, you not only have this pressure on the team after last year, but you have individualized pressures on some of the players that's going to be worth monitoring over the course of the season.
Well, and I think a lot of those internal pressures is good for a lot of players, as long as they're able to mitigate the noise. And we've seen it, like Vancouver is a very loud market when it comes to fans and media, which is good. We have high expectations of this team for years. We are starved for a Stanley Cup. This fan base wants one thing, and you will be immortalized forever.
Yep.
But the players need to be able to handle that media pressure. And I think with Quinn Hughes, like the soft-spoken leader, I think that very good hands that the team's in with that type of leadership, where it's, I think behind closed doors, he's gotten a lot more confident. I don't know if you've watched the Amazon series. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head right now.
NHL Face Off, I believe. And I know there's one of the episodes on the captains and Quinn Hughes. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I certainly will be coming up here. The trailers have been amazing, so I'm sort of waiting until I can set aside a block of time to watch several episodes at a time and make sure I get a real feel for the series. But I like what you said about Hughes. I mean, he grew up as a player last year and winning his Norris Trophy, and I think he grew up as a leader when getting that C. We've been talking about on the show how it very much reminds us of Henrik Sedin when he inherited the captaincy of the Vancouver Canucks, because look, Henrik was known as a soft-spoken guy who really wasn't one of the core leaders in a room that included Marcus Naslund and Trevor Linden, a couple of Canucks captains. And, the next thing you know, he gets the C, and he really felt empowered, and he started talking on behalf of the group. He really found his voice, and it was a voice of smart, serene, stoic leadership, where when he spoke, people listened. So I think they're in good hands in that regard, from a dressing room standpoint with the captain, Quinn Hughes. I think they're also in really good hands with their head coach, Rick Tocchet. Because needless to say, the coaching job that he and his staff did last year was it was the best in the NHL, if by virtue of the Jack Adams Trophy, but truly one of the great coaching jobs that I've seen in 25 years of covering sports, any sports. So, I think they got a couple of guiding voices there that maybe they haven't had in the past, at least not in the same measure. When you look at head coach and captain, I think you probably have to go back to Alain Vigneault and Henrik Sedin to find that in this room.
When we were talking a couple weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, that Rick Tocchet's name needs to be up there with, even if the worst case scenario, we have a terrible season, he's gone next year, he still needs to be up there with what some of the better coaches that the Vancouver Canucks as an organization has had throughout the years.
Yeah.
He's great with the media, able to explain things that people like me who've never laced up a pair of skates can understand and make it digestible. It's great to have a coach that's able to do that, but is able to call players out, like Dakota Joshua last year. Called him out for his lack of fitness when he showed up to camp, and look at the season he had.
Yep.
Right? It's nice to be able to have that from a coach.
Yeah, and that's the sort of clout that he carries. Of course, he was a terrific player in his own right, and the players all know that and respect that, but he cares about them as people first and foremost, and that allows him to go out and say the sorts of things that he does in the press. It's going to be interesting to see the relationship between he and Elias Pettersson this year, because I think he's really got to push Pettersson this year. And, also last year, Pettersson wanted to blame a lot of his struggles on a knee injury, and Tocchet sort of brushed it off as tendonitis and said, hey, kid, this is what you're going to have to learn to play through. To be a Sidney Crosby, to be an Evgeny Malkin, be one of those top guys on a Stanley Cup championship team. I think he's also done a really great job of sizing up the market. And quite frankly, I don't think he would be too different, or wasn't too different in his previous stops in Arizona and in Tampa. But I think he recognizes full well that, this is another level when you're talking about a hockey market and hockey IQ. You do have a lot of people who have played the game. You do have a lot of people who have been watching the game their entire lives, watching this team their entire lives, investing tens of thousands of dollars year in, year out to watch the Canucks live at Rogers Arena, and before that, the Pacific Coliseum. So I think he understands, and Alain Vigneault knew this as well, is, you're not going to be able to BS this market. You got to be authentic. You got to be honest. You got to be willing to have the conversations. And boy, the one thing we've learned about Rick Tocchet for the year and a half that he's been the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks is he likes to have the conversation.
Yes.
And we're all sort of the richer for it, because you learn so much about hockey.
Oh, it's anytime he has an availability and I have the chance to be able to listen in, I'm listening, because there's always a nugget or two where I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, now I have to deep dive on that and understand it. The old man is in the comment section.
I see that. I'm glad he's feeling good enough to comment.
Yes, he's asking you specifically, who stood out in training camp for you?
Well, how can you not say Aatu Räty, right? The 21-year-old Finnish centerman who, went into this camp as one of the Vancouver Canucks' better prospects, went into this camp as one of the Vancouver Canucks minor leaguers who, was closest to the NHL and most likely to get a call-up if injuries merited. And yet with only one real injury, maybe two, we'll see about Pius Suter tonight, a game-time decision. But with really only the one injury at forward to Dakota Joshua, he just has a storming camp. It started at Young Stars in Penticton, then into training camp, then into preseason, and he wins himself a job on this hockey team. And how fantastic is that for the Vancouver Canucks? Because really, they have not had a whole lot of push from below and guys developing in Abbotsford and previous to that, Utica, who have been able to come up and positively affect the hockey club. Nils Höglander would be one several years ago, but, his development wasn't linear, had to go back and pop back up. They've had that in goal with Thatcher Demko and now Archer Sheloves, but they really haven't had a whole lot of these young guys knocking on the door. And he not only knocked on the door, he knocked the door off its hinges There is a world where he could play third line center for the Vancouver Canucks.
Well,
It,
and
it
I
was that
just
tight, Suter. Mm-hmm.
I just saw on Twitter, tweeted out by Brendan Batchelor, that he will indeed be the third line center tonight because Pius Suter is out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's remarkable because when we started our training camp coverage, one of the things that we said and got no pushback on was there were really not a lot of jobs, if any jobs, available at this camp. You had a pretty formed team. You had a bunch of free agent additions. You knew they were going to make the club. You didn't have many guys who projected as regulars who had the look of a guy who, with a bad camp, could get sent down. There wasn't really any true bubble guys in that respect. And Atu Ratu and Arshdeep Bains made it really difficult on the coaching staff by having terrific preseasons. So this could be a lot of fun here. Of course, he was acquired from the New York Islanders as part of the Bo Horvat trade, and of course, the Canucks took that first round pick in Beauvillier and flipped it and turned it into Philip Hronek. So you're looking at a world where the Canucks might reap Philip Hronek and Atu Ratu from the Bo Horvat trade. And let's clarify one thing or contextualize one thing. I mean, he winds up being a second round pick, but at 16 years old, scouts were talking about this guy potentially vying to be the first overall pick in his draft. Now, it didn't go well from there, and it hurt his prospect status, and he fell to the second round. But this is a pedigreed, credible player who can play center ice, who's pretty good defensively, who has some offensive acumen. So, and has even developed flipping the stick, flipping the hand over, and being able to take those faceoffs on the right-hand side as though he was a natural right-handed centerman. And of course, the Canucks don't have any of those amongst their NHL centers. So there are a lot of different things that you like about the player, and there's a lot of different things that I think could make him very serviceable for Rick Tocchet and his staff this year.
Yeah, super interesting to see his trajectory of coming in and being like, oh yeah, he's a project. We'll see what happens. To seeing him now make headlines and push his way into the lineup. It's super, super great to see from a fan standpoint of just a guy who's worked hard to make it happen.
Yeah. And, Patrick Allvin and Rick Tocchet cautioned this week. They're like, well, he's here for now. We'll see where that goes. Darren Dreger on our show this week said to us that he had Dakota Joshua looks like he's 3 or 4 weeks away. Rick Tocchet said he's going to be skating with the main groups soon. So there is a world where Dakota Joshua, misses 5-6 games, maybe 7-8 games, most of the month of October, but returns before November 1st. And, of course, at that point, I think you'd be looking at somebody shaking out and a roster spot having to be freed up. And if Atu Ratu doesn't perform, or if they just think he's better off playing the heavy minutes in Abbotsford than he would be as a fourth line player or a bit player in the Canucks bottom six, then I suspect he'll go down. What's important for the young man here is to not treat making this roster like a finish line, rather treat it like a starting block.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see because, I mean, he's been put on a line with Höglander and Garland.
Yep.
So that's going to be a grindy third line who's going to be able to get in there and just hopefully make Calgary pay tonight. Be super great.
He's playing with, that's great real estate too, right? You're talking about 2 20 goal scorers. So I don't think it's going to be enough for Atu Ratu, particularly if he's going to play third line even strength minutes, to be a zero offensively and just be safe and get off the ice and make sure you're not scored on. I think at some point, particularly if he gets a run of games, you're going to need to start to see some sort of production from him because, much as we all like the season that Teddy Bluger had last year, he just does not have the hands to be a credible goal-scoring threat for you. We know that about Nils Oman, who's also going to skate on the fourth line tonight. Now, Kiefer Sherwood has a pretty good shot, and he might be a double-digit goal guy when it's all said and done. But, if you're already going to be carrying a couple of guys on the fourth line who aren't helping you a ton offensively, and let's face it, I'm not sure how many goals and how much production they're going to get from the bottom four on defense. There's a lot of defenders there, more so than guys who are accustomed to, carrying the puck, shooting the puck, and getting involved offensively. So, you can't afford to have three different forwards be total non-factors offensively. So I think Ratu's going to have to bring some degree of production as well if he's going to stick with the Canucks long term and when Joshua gets back.
Yeah. It'll be super interesting to see when Joshua's back how the lines unfold and things are moving. Things are constantly moving. It's one of the fun times to be a fan.
Yeah,
beginning of the season, and the puzzle pieces are moving. You're like, ooh, and we could see these pieces over here, and it's a lot of fun. But before I let you go to get ready to watch the game here, Deanna chats in and says, who is the rookie to watch on the Canucks? I'm going to open that up down to the Abbotsford Canucks as well.
Oh, okay. Well, look, one of them we just talked about in Ratu, but I'll go with Artur Shelovs. He still qualifies as a rookie. In fact, tonight he plays his 10th NHL regular season game, which matches the number of Stanley Cup playoff games that he has played in his career. So 20th all-time game here for Artur Shelovs, and he is going to have to be good because, look, we have an idea on Demko's timeline, 3 to 4 weeks on the early end. What we don't necessarily know beyond just when will Demko be back is how much can Thatcher Demko maintain this season? How is he able to play and hold up with this unique muscle injury that he has that's just going to cause him pain that he's going to have to play through? Does he miss another stint of the season at some point? And of course, even when he is there and available, can the Canucks get him requisite rest to make sure that he's fresh and ready to go in the Stanley Cup playoffs? So it's going to be a big job. We found that out last year about Casey DeSmith, who stepped in and played very well and was needed when Thatcher Demko went out. We have seen this before with Canucks goaltenders where, the backup has to be good. It can't just be one of these backups that you hope to get by with. They're going to need to steal some games from time to time. So, yeah, Artur Shelovs, a rookie to watch with the Canucks this year. Still retains Calder eligibility. So if you want to go ahead and bet him for the Calder, I mean, there is a world where maybe he's the backstop to a terrific Canucks season because Demko's unable to play much.
Well, and hopefully if Shelovs has a season like that, that just means we don't need Demko to come back and he can get fully healed and learn how to play through whatever this injury is. The I can't think of the name of it, but his knee injury.
Popliteus, yes.
That's the one. Sure, there's been more searches for that in Google than ever since that announcement.
I had to look it up myself today again. Just a refresher on the spelling, on the pronunciation, on everything. Because as Thatcher told us there when he outlined the injury, they cannot find a single hockey player who has had this. So an unprecedented injury, charting a new course, a lot of unknowns there. I'm sure it's scary. The good news is, though, he's on the ice. He's been skating on the ice, taking shots. And so you have to feel good that he is coming back here at some point. And I think you also, and Patrick Alvin outlined this week, they are not going to rush him. They are going to give him all the time in the world because they need a healthy Thatcher Demko when he comes back, not the guy we saw last year who came back for a playoff game and then had to sit down. The only complication there is if you get behind the 8 ball in the standings, right? And suddenly you're chasing the postseason. That would be an interesting dynamic to see what happens there. But so long as they can stay competitive, keep their heads above water here in the month of October, I suspect you'll see Demko at some point in November, and then we'll start to get some information on how he's doing with this new normal of his.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We appreciate you jumping on with us right before the game here, Matt. The one last question I have, because the old man asked it forever ago, and I've just been holding off. He said, "You're looking amazing. And he wonders, did you get a lot of golf in this year?
I did. Particularly the month of August, and I kept it going through September, and I even played yesterday at Northlands in North Vancouver. So I'm hoping to get a couple of more rounds in before we get to fall back, where suddenly daylight gets slim and you're not able to play as many afternoons as you used to. So thank you, old man, for asking, and we have to get out next time that old man's able to visit us here in Vancouver.
Definitely sounds like a plan. I'll book it in his calendar for him. Thank you so much, Matt. Enjoy the game tonight. And if you want to listen to Matt, you can listen to it Monday through Friday,
right,
at 1 p.m. or noon
Pacific. Yeah, we just changed that this week. As a matter of fact, we now go noon Pacific on YouTube, X, a bunch of social media, Facebook, Instagram, all your social media platforms. And yeah, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can also listen on podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. Appreciate the opportunity. Old man, feel better. Enjoy the hockey season, guys.
Have a good one, Matt. Thanks so much. That was Matt Sekeres from Sekeres and Price. We are a mere 3 minutes and change away from the puck drop. And I just want to read through the lines for the game tonight. I'm just pulling up Brandon Batchelor's tweet. We have DeBrusque, Pettersson, Sprong as your first line. Heinen, Miller, Besser, Hoglander, Ratu, Garland, Amon, Bluger, Sherwood. Then on defense, we have Hughes, Hronik, Susie, Myers, Forbert, Desharnais, and then it is an RT party in net with Artur Shilovs starting. I'm going to let you guys go a few minutes early so we can all get ready to listen and watch and bask in the sounds of game 1 of 82. It'll be a blast. Follow and like it at HSP_pod everywhere. X, Twitter, whatever it is you want to call it. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment, let us know. And I will see you beautiful people tomorrow morning. You'll hear my beautiful voice. You might not see me. You'll hear my beautiful voice with the Irrational Fan postgame show tomorrow morning, and one after every single game. 82 of them, one after every single